Okay, welcome back to the channel. So we got a reaction. Pursuit of Wonder, right? My homie. We watched like 2 videos from him like yesterday. I was gonna watch a different video, but I realized I need to watch something that I really want to watch, not just to try to switch it up. Something I really want to watch because my attention is like not here right now. Um, who am I? A thought experiment that changes how you think about yourself. Let's see. Let's see if this thought experiment is going to change the way that I think about myself because, my God, I feel like I need to give myself a break. I feel like I'm punishing myself by watching these videos. Like, after that podcast that I watched with Joe Rogan, oh my God, I just feel like I'm not like in any sort of state to be like thinking about anything else. I just can't get my mind off of any of that. Holy shit. Anyway, let's get straight into it. No more
This video is
pussyfooting
sponsored
around.
by the book summary app, Blinkist. Use the link in the description
I've
to
actually
receive 1
had
free week
Blinkist.
and 25% off a premium membership.
Oh, unlimited access? I mean, I've actually had Blinkist.
We've all
but
experienced nostalgia before.
it's a
That
bit
feeling
expensive.
of sentimentality, longing, or affection.
We've had what?
Experienced nostalgia before.
Nostalgia,
That feeling
yeah.
of sentimentality, longing, or affection for our past. It is a poignant experience that intimates the passing of time and reminds us of who we once were, but will never be again. When looking back, sometimes even just
I hate when you word it like that, bro. It just sounds so depressing. Sometimes when I hear this guy talk, he makes it sound so depressing.
a year,
But he's right. He's not wrong. I mean, he's not making that
it can
up.
often feel like we are observing a person and life that is completely different. A stranger experiencing an almost unrecognizable life and sense of self. But of course, this person was us, and of course, we are also us right now.
But different.
But then, who are we?
Hmm?
What makes us who we are? What does our present self have in common with our past self of 10 years ago? What will it have in common with our future self in 10 more years?
Well,
Is there
probably
anything
my
that
name,
truly
hopefully?
persists through it all that makes and keeps us who we are?
My parents,
What is it,
hopefully?
if there is?
My brother?
For starters, when trying to pin down what makes us who we are, we might consider our body.
Yeah.
But in truth,
but it changes
most of
a
us
lot.
don't really find our body to be the primary source of our sense of self. For example, if you lost all your limbs, it is fair to assume that you would still feel and claim to be you.
Yes.
Even taken to the extreme.
And you
if
wouldn't be
somehow
like
you lost
50% of you either. In a sense, a lot of it is just your memory. I feel like that's what it's gonna come down to, no? Most of it is just your memory, your immediate, like I said, surroundings, like your family, the house, like shit that you can remember. It's like, okay, I can remember that there is like a continuum there. There's a consistency in this, and this allows me to know that I'm the same person every time I go to sleep and I wake up. Like, for example, I go to sleep in this bed right behind me, and I will wake up in this bed right behind me, hopefully. And it's like, okay, well, there's that consistency. I remember, right? And I know that I want to sleep in this bed, and I know the layout of my room. And it's like, well, all of that is kind of stored in my brain to have a sort of a sense of knowledge, right? A sense of knowing, of belonging. And it's like, you got to have a sense of things. You got to understand like your environment a little bit. That's built into you. And it's like, well, I remember. So in a sense, it's all in here. Doesn't really matter about out there. It's really all in here. So if something here is fucking up, like for example, I talked about it, like Alzheimer's. Like if you just forget your own name, you forget your own parents, you forget everything. It's like, then you have a problem about who you really are, right? Because then you don't know.
lost your whole body, but could still live and experience the world from within your head, carried around in a jar or placed on some sort of android. Although a strange and different life, you would likely still feel and claim that you are you.
Because
Not only that, but regardless of what you claim, essentially all the cells that comprise your body are replaced anew every 10 years or so. So if you identify yourself
That's
with
true.
the consistency of your body is never really physically the same anyway. And of course, throughout your life, your body's appearance changes completely as well. Your 8-year-old self looks essentially nothing like your 30-year-old self, but you almost certainly would never claim that one is more or less you. And of course, the circumstances of your life essentially change completely as well. Even if you live in the same place changes all the time. And so, there is nothing really outside of your body that can be identified with either. Instead of the body or our circumstances,
I wouldn't agree.
most of us identify primarily with our brain. But what part of the brain is us? The brain is an immensely complex organ with tons of components and functions, and most of us wouldn't identify with much of it. We likely don't feel like we are the parts of the brain involved with automatic, unconscious functions and responses, the regulation and adjustment of the breath and heart and balance and all the other things that happen beneath our direct control and awareness. We might say then that we are the parts of our brain related to our tastes and preferences.
Or
But what if this part of your brain was altered? Would you no longer be you? If yes, doesn't this happen all the time throughout life in general? Are we not constantly changing our tastes and preferences across our lifetime? What about if the parts of our brain affecting
Like
how we
values?
talk and act changed? What if we lost or gained sets of skills? Again, don't these things occur all throughout life as well? How about the way in which we respond to things, our character and temperament and humor and so on? Again, arguably, this changes continually.
I mean, I think it's a question to be asked, but it's more of an ontological question. Like, you don't really need to ask it. Like, you're not getting too much value. I mean, it's still, I guess it's still an important question. Like, you have to define self. But it's also like nobody's, like I said, unless if you have a mental thing, nobody's struggling to answer this question. Like, it's not something that's really that important to me. Like, it seems, am I the only one that just doesn't think anybody's really struggling to answer that question? Who am I? I mean, who's really struggling, right? Like, are motherfuckers struggling? Like, maybe you couldn't put it into, language or words. You couldn't exactly give us, like, concrete, imperial, like, what was the word? Not like, imperial evidence? I think that's what it is called. It's like objectiveness. Like, it's just that sense of subjectivity. Right? It's that self-awareness of self. I mean, I've been this motherfucker all my life. He's changed a lot, right? I'm talking third person now. I've changed a lot. I've gotten haircuts. I've changed a lot. Now I got acne on my face just about a week ago. Maybe I didn't. I'm not wearing the same clothes. I'm in the same room now. Like, I mean, there's things that are helping me not lose that sense. But it's also like, I just don't think motherfuckers have a problem. I don't think anybody struggles to answer that question. Like, they'll know. They just probably couldn't explain it to you very well.
As well. Imagine what you liked, what you were good at, what you cared about, how you talked, and how your temperament was 15 years ago. Are these things at all similar in any real substantial way to you now? Probably no more than a distant friend at best. And so, if we, as a central and consistent thing, are not our bodies, not our brain's unconscious functions, not our tastes and preferences, not our technical capacities, and not our character, who or what are we? Perhaps the most fundamental thing that makes us feel like the same person across our lifetime is our memory. This seems to be the most difficult thing to imagine we would still be ourselves if we lost it. But what does that mean for people who have extreme long-term memory loss,
There it
like
is.
certain individuals with Alzheimer's disease? Are they no longer themselves? Do they no longer have a self? If so, who are they?
Well,
Are they
are.
somehow
They just
nobody?
don't remember.
If so, who is it that we are interacting with when we interact with them? Perhaps they are nobody in the way we typically think of somebody, but perhaps
That's a good
so
question.
are you. In truth, for all of us, if we look into our body and mind to try to find precisely and concretely who or what we are, that central persistent something that makes us, we find this strange nobodiness. In the words of Fernando Pessoa, I've changed at every moment. I always feel like a stranger. I've never seen or found myself. I am my own landscape. I watch myself journey, various, mobile, and alone. Here where I am, I can't feel myself. That's why I read as a stranger, my being as if it were pages, not knowing what will come, and forgetting what is past. Rereading, I wonder, was that me? From a neuroscientific understanding, this notion of there not being a defined self is validated by the fact that there is no part of the brain where everything comes together for an ego or self to form, or for a sort of center stage where thoughts are displayed, perceived, and evaluated. Consciousness is a cascade of neurophysiology, and everything is distributed everywhere, said modern neuroscientist and philosopher Sam Harris. The self appears merely to be a particular kind of illusion. It is
And
not
from
that
the
we don't
podcast that
have
I
a
learned,
self,
that I was
but that
listening
the self
to,
is just not.
you could say that technically, like, one of the scientific theories is it maybe evolves from like a survival standpoint, which I've actually made a theory about this, which was completely different from what he said. My theory was maybe you need to be self-conscious of yourself because that in some way is going to aid in you not killing yourself, right? That was my theory. I was like, if a monkey keeps getting smarter but he doesn't have an ego and he's not conscious and aware of himself, he might be smart enough to evaluate all of the shit that's going on. He might be smart enough to evaluate, like, hey, yo, this shit, like, I'm gonna be able to evaluate this thing, and the most important thing is I'm gonna be able to evaluate, should I keep living or should I maybe die? That is something that I can evaluate that maybe other animals cannot. Therefore, we must have an ego because we need there to be a barrier there that will stop us from just simply killing ourselves because we're going to evaluate life and we're going to be like, well, I have evaluated that maybe I should keep not living. Maybe I shouldn't keep on living. I would be better off dead. And that was my theory, that consciousness was supposed to stop that in some way, right? Like, in some way. But also, there's the theory is just that, like, it's just a survival mechanism. Like, you need to be aware of your food, and then when your food is smart, you need to have more and more complexity. You develop more and more complex systems, and now you're not just um making mental image, and you're not just like uh sort of, what is it like, what do we do all the time? We make a mental image, right? You're not making just a mental image of the world. You can right now in your head envision a satellite view over your house. You could envision that. You could envision yourself just starting to float. You could probably envision my table floating. Like, I wouldn't see it with my eyes, but I can think of it and I can, like, sort of imagine it in some weird way. I can, like, in my head almost see the table elevating a little bit, right? Mentally see it. And it's like, well, they said maybe a theory is at some point you have to have a mental image of yourself. Somehow that just spawns out of nowhere just through natural shit, right? It's like, oh my god, I have to. Oh, I really just wanna. I want to watch that whole podcast again.
How it feels or appears to us, as opposed to a singular, central, unitary thing that is carried forward from each moment to the next. It is a process, an emergent phenomenon of a non-central, inconsistent progression and unfolding of everything we knowingly and unknowingly interact with. A seeming feedback loop takes place between the world, our body, and our mind, and out of which the experience of self emerges. In other words, the self is merely an experience of a process, and as long as we persist through time, there is nothing to be found that is constant that persists through us. It is a common thing to say and believe that it is important to be yourself in life. When we aren't, it can feel shaming and dissatisfying. When we notice others aren't, we can feel a discomfort, distrust, or an unappealing nature to their company. Being ourselves is in fact an important and worthy goal, if not perhaps one of the worthiest goals in human existence. But the problem is, if the self is an illusion, how do we be it? Perhaps being yourself doesn't require knowing yourself in any ultimate sense. Perhaps it isn't even about being who you think you are. It isn't a matter of being consistent or doing what you or other people expect you to do based on what you've done or who you've been. Rather, it is doing and being what you feel is an honest embodiment of what you think and want right now. A foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds, adored by little statesmen and philosophers and divines. With consistency, a great soul has simply nothing to do. He may as well concern himself with the shadow on the wall. Speak what you think now in hard words, and tomorrow, speak what tomorrow thinks in hard words again, though it contradict everything you said today. Ah, so you shall be sure to be misunderstood. To be great is to be misunderstood, wrote Ralph Waldo Emerson.
He's got a
being
point,
who you are is being who you become, and then being who you become.
That is true. That is true, because a lot of motherfuckers ain't gonna understand you. A lot of motherfuckers ain't gonna ever be able to understand you in a fundamental level when you're being yourself. Because it's like, look at some of these NPCs. Motherfuckers live to be like everybody else. They just want to copy everybody else. And it's like, you see why we're social creatures. Like, of course, they want to fit in, but it's like, why can I see past that, but they can't? Or am I really seeing past that? Or am I just being a narcissist? Am I just thinking too highly of myself, being like, yeah, well, I mean, I can see past it. They're just being stupid. And they can't see past it. Probably what's happening. But it's just like, some motherfuckers just completely lose their originality because they want to be like somebody else so bad. They listen to their parents, they listen to their friends, and they let them dictate their lives. It's just like, I don't know, man.
And then being who you become, over and over. Being yourself is a continual process of being someone else. In the end, there is nothing to find or be, but a process of finding and being. These ideas and questions echo throughout human history across the globe, from modern neuroscience back to the Buddha, Advaita Vedanta of Hinduism, ancient Greek philosophers like Heraclitus and Plato, and everywhere and everyone in between.
My boy Heraclitus.
For as long as people have known they are someone, we have struggled to pin down who that someone is. Of course, because of the ambiguous and unbreachable nature of selfhood,
it just seems like there's no pinning. It just seems like there's no pinning down. It's just this thing that you're aware of yourself. That's it, bro. Like, I think the whole pinning down thing is an illusion. You're eluded. I think so. I don't think, like, you're not going to find a specific place where you're going to know yourself. You're just aware of yourself because of your brain's functions. I think so. Somehow your brain's functions, they just sort of, it's like, they require you to be aware of yourself in some way. It came about. It probably has a function. I don't think it's just suicide. Preventing suicide. But, like, you're just aware of yourself. I think people are looking at it the wrong way. Like, they're looking to see something concrete where there's nothing concrete. It's just like trying to get to the most fundamental level of things, right? And you realize that everything's just a manifestation of energy. It's just like, does that really make any sense though? Like, how is this table just a whole nother manifestation? Like, if I get down to the most, lowest level, it's gonna be some wavicle, whatever. It's like, it's just a manifestation of energy. How does that even make any sense? It's just like, this, like, self-awareness is a manifestation of something. I don't think you're gonna find, I don't think you're going to find it.
This is just theory and one perspective. And as the only person who will ever experience the self and perspective that is you are free to think of yourself in any way you'd like. Ultimately, possessing this experience of self is perhaps the most strange, disorienting, and beautiful thing unique to the human experience. To feel like and be aware of a self compels us to try to define it. It implicates attachment to it and the things it attaches to. It provides us with a front row seat to the rising and falling action of the strange show of the universe that ultimately ends with a scene that kills its audience. It is part tragic play and part magic show that strikes divinity into even the most secular of individuals.
Depends on how you choose to see it.
We
you
are
can
each
see it
given
as a
this
comedy.
gift of selfhood, an illusory paradoxical experience of something and nothing, of experiencer and experiences. The conjunction of both, a run-on sentence always being added to with an and. And perhaps all we can and should try to do is make the sentence as beautiful as we can, rich with the cadence of poetry, the diversity of a complete story, and the punctuation of an exclamative.
Punctuation of an exclamative.
If you're interested in further exploring the current version of yourself, consider checking out my guided journal, designed to help you understand and evolve the ever-changing thing that is you.
Yo, get your fucking plug-in, my boy. Good fucking content, man. Oh, I've actually downloaded this, by the way. Blinkist. I have like 4 apps like that. I don't really need another one. I'm not gonna hold you. Like, I love it. I think it's a nice app. I just don't know. Anyway, that was that. Who am I? Who are you guys? Who are you watching this video? Who are you? Do you know? Do you really know? What is the most consistent? How could you prove to me that you are you? What party? Where could you point? If you had to point, if I had to ask you, Prove to me that you are you. Prove to me that you are that's like asking somebody, are you conscious, right? Like that's the same question. Like, it's just, you're not gonna have an answer. Don't even worry about it. As long as you know. Don't you worry about it. I believe you. I believe you're here, right? I believe if you're watching this, I think anybody who doesn't watch this video, I think they're lying. But I think if you've watched this video and you made it all the way to the end, that's how I know. Like, if you made it to the end and you're listening to this, you're a fucking G. And leave a comment, and I will love that, and I will reply to it, and like let me know. But it's just like, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like. Make sure you leave a sub. I will catch you guys in the next one, man. Yes, sir. See ya.